Well, like I said in the group message, if this is terrible, blame Chad. If this is good, praise God. That's just kind of the way it works. All right. I'm going to tell y'all a very fun fact about me. I hate cedar trees. Anybody like cedar trees? I know this is like an unpopular opinion. I absolutely hate cedar trees with a passion. Noelle, she wanted to plant, some kind of little trees in the backyard. She's like, well, since there's these things and we can't, this would make good privacy fence. And I said, that looks too much like cedar. See, the reason why I hate cedar trees is I spent the mass majority of my youth cutting down these cedar trees that was in Dad's yard, and they had big spiders that always dropped down on you, and I spent all these years hating cedar trees. And no, I do not have one planted in my yard. I refuse to plant one. But an interesting fact is, I spent 13 weeks of my life sitting underneath the cedar tree every day. And enjoyed sitting underneath the cedar tree. Matter of fact, I got a picture of the cedar tree on my phone that I sit under every day. I would sit underneath the cedar tree. I would get the important thing first. I'd get my chair and my coffee cup. I'd get that out of the trunk of the car and I'd sit it up underneath the cedar tree. And then I'd get the least important stuff. I'd get the lunch box. I'd get the cell phone. And then I'd sit and I'd eat my lunch. When I first started sitting underneath the cedar tree, everybody started walking by me and they thought I was crazy. They said, it's hot. The barracks have air conditioner. I don't care. I've spent 20 years sitting outside eating lunch, eating sandwiches. Can't break this habit. So I sat under a cedar tree first few weeks by myself. Later on, other people started bringing chairs and they started sitting. And before we knew it, we had about 14 people huddled underneath this cedar tree. And we talked about all different things and really got to know each other. And we would talk. I would take prayer requests. I would talk to people. And I'd have conversations. There was one man in particular, I won't mention his name, but I would sit and I would talk to him. And we'd talk about the Lord. And there's stuff in my life, and this, that, and other thing, and well, God loves you. You say, I know God loves you because Jesus went to the cross, He died on Calvary. So we talk and we have very civil conversation. Really nice conversation, actually. He would ask me questions, I would answer questions, and we would stay on topic. I wouldn't get off in arguments. And then another guy joins in on the conversation. After I find out a key piece of information about said person that I've spent all this time talking to, planting seed. Because one day we were in formation. And Chad he's seen me do this before. If somebody's got a tattoo, I want to talk to them about tattoo. We were at the gym the other night. I walked up to a guy, asked him where he got his tattoo from. Complimented his tattoo. Like, it's pretty nice. The person, they did the shading and all that, nice tattoo. I'll normally do this, and if I see this person again, I'll remember the tattoo, and I'll try to talk to them again. Eventually, I'll get into conversation and people will get comfortable. But this guy, I asked him, I said, what's up with your tattoo? Because every tattoo's got a story. And he told me the story. He looked at me and he said, me and my husband have matching tattoos. Oh. Okay. Another guy laughs and is like, no, seriously. And he's like, no, seriously. He said, do y'all have a problem with that? Nope. I want to stay respectful. So this whole time I've been having a civil conversation about the Lord, having a guy asking me questions, this, that, and the other thing. That is the last person I figured I'd have a civil conversation with. Y'all agree? Now another guy jumps in and he starts talking. And this is the person that I figured would have my back into this discussions in any kind of No, matter of fact, he ripped into me and he started talking about how Christians are the most hateful people. He was raised in a Christian home, and Christians are so hateful. And all this guy wanted to do was to sit and to argue and to everything. And I mean, he knew some Bible. He did. I mean, he grew up in a Christian home. He knew Bible. And so he's laying in, and I just looked at him, and now he's starting to get the other 14 people, well, the other 13 people in a little bit of an uproar. And now they're kind of starting to divide out. The progress that I have made, I see slowly dwindling away. Quickly, in a hurry. And so I look at him, and I said, what is the greatest commandment? And he's like, oh, you want to know the 10 Commandments? Well, I know the 10 Commandments. No. I said, there was a lawyer. He asked Jesus what was the greatest commandments. He was trying to trip up Jesus. What is the greatest commandment? Love God. I said, what did he say the second was? Well, so we look over and we see in Matthew 22:37, Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and the great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these 2 commandments hang all the laws of the prophet. So he's like, okay, what's your point? What was the second one again, buddy? Love your neighbor as yourself. Do I need to go into the Good Samaritan? No, I know that story. Why are we not doing this? I said, why are you spending time? Why are you wanting to argue? Love is the answer, right? We love God. This right here, if we do this right here, everything in life kind of falls into place. Because if we love God with everything we got, we're going to do what God asks us to do, right? We're going to live our lives the way God wants us to live our lives because we love God. We're going to constantly be wanting to be in the will of God. We're constantly going to be praying because we love God, right? Everybody's staring at me like a calf staring at a new fence. Chad, you may get hate mail. Sorry, Chad's mom. So if we love God with everything, then we're going to be in God's will. We love God with everything. We want to be like God. We're Christians. We're supposed to be Christ-like, right? So our mindset should be like God's mindset. It's that we should go out and we should seek and save that which is lost. We should go out every day, everywhere we go, and witness, right? So my question to him is, why are we not doing this? I said, you sit here and you tell me that this is your viewpoint on Christians, that they're all angry, they're all hateful, and this, that, and the other thing. I said, I go to a church. I told them you can look it up. I said, the people are friendly. They're nice. They treat people with respect. And I looked at him. I said, do you believe I'm a Christian? He said, yes. I said, how is my attitude? Other than when we had to fight, how's my attitude? You're real polite. You treat people with respect. I said, do you remember the golden rule? I said, that probably wasn't taught when you were in school. It was taught when I was in school. Treat others the way you want to be treated. That's when the gay guy pops up and he starts talking. The last person I figured would come to my defense. And the last person I figured would calm down a group of people that's now starting to get in an uproar. He sat and he listened to me. He sat and he asked me questions for one reason only. I was nice to him. I did not stand there and I did not tell him God hates you. And I did not stand there and say I get excited whenever your people die and go to hell. I had compassion. Do I agree with his lifestyle? No. Did I excuse his lifestyle? No. Love and mercy. Can he get saved? I don't know. I believe it can. And the reason why is because I know in Corinthians there's a whole list of stuff that's listed off. And he says, and so were some of y'all. Or however, I'm paraphrasing. So we're sitting there. This kind of calms everybody back down. We kind of rear back, get our range back in and have our normal conversations. So I thought, okay, that's weird. So now I start my job. Now I sit with a bunch of people. And it's interesting. I hear a bunch of colorful language. And the bad thing is you hear a bunch of colorful language. You have to really watch it because you don't want to start saying colorful language. So I sit down, first day on the job. One of the guys know me well. I'm sitting there. We're doing our meeting that we do in the morning. And this one guy, it's like every other syllable is his favorite word. The other guy looks at him and says, "Do you not know he's a preacher sitting next to you?" And I don't know if you know people that talk with their hands. If you hold their hands, they can't talk. Him not being able to say that word, he couldn't talk. Like he was trying to think of how to say something, but he couldn't. And it was hilarious. So I've been working with them, talking to them. Their viewpoint was the same, though, as to it's a hateful. Matter of fact, they were in a Baptist church, and they left the Baptist church. They went to a Methodist church. I may have to one day get you lined up with them, Paul. And they said, "Hey." Now, they have been curious about my church because I do talk good about y'all and talk about it's a friendly church. They love people. They asked where the church was, gave them the address. And don't tell them the name because they just know addresses like 1099 or, you know. So they're like, yeah, 10-4, all right. So maybe they'll show up one day, hopefully. But it's interesting. And I had a conversation with a friend, and he was getting discouraged because he's like, I've gave advice to this person, and they're not listening. Oh, yeah. I give advice all the time. Nobody listens to me. I gave advice to family members for years about Bible translations. And I am not joking when I say they walked up to me one day and said, this one person told me that the King James Bible was da-da-da-da-da, and that was the best translation. Da-da-da. It blew my mind. I'm like, I can't hit them. This is the way it goes. I personally believe everybody we run across, it's for a reason. I do not believe that I've met Aaron just for chance, Brother Denny just for chance, Chad, Big John back there, or Bear. Every one of them I believe I've met for a reason. We've crossed paths for a reason. I'm either to teach them something, they're to teach me something, or we're both to teach each other. My opinion. Take it for what it's worth. I mean, I've ran across Brother Denny because he was there at creation, so if I got a question, I can ask him. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But the thing is we run across people, and how often do we sit there and we really think about, I went to the convenience store today, and this person waited on me. Or I went to work today and I met this person. Or, I recently have taken up a jiu-jitsu class, which is fun. Get folded up like a pretzel, and then they try to tell you how to work out of it. Fun. Do you think it's just a coincidence or just random that I'm there? Everybody we meet, I believe we are to witness to. See, going back to the friend who's sitting there, he's worried. He's not really worried, but he's down because he gave good, sound, biblical advice to a guy, and the guy doesn't listen to him. All we can do is plant the seed. Now, in my 13 weeks of sitting underneath a tree, a cedar tree, which I absolutely hate, though it did get me over fear of spiders, I was hoping somebody would have got saved. They didn't. Languages got cleaned up a little. There was one of them actively looking for a church in his area. I can't control what a person does with the information I give them. That's up to God. But the thing is so often, though, we do look at certain people and we think we can't reach them. They're too far gone. I've told y'all several times, I love walking up to the crazy people covered in tats that look like they're going to kill me. I love talking to them people. They're some of the most interesting people. I can tell you right now, I know a guy that's got very bad tattoos. We'll just put it that way. Tatted all over his body. Very bad tattoos. I first met him, and it was a field day. I said, "So you a Tibetan monk?" I see you got their symbol of luck tatted all over you. Yeah, some of y'all know what that symbol is. So, no. One day, he's not going to have them symbols on him. One day, he's going to have a glorified body. You look at this guy, and you would have thought there was no way in the world this guy would ever be a Christian. He got all them tattoos before he became a Christian. Matter of fact, somebody in the jail witnessed to him, gave him a Bible. He had nothing better to do than to read. And that's what he did. I'm kind of talking about all this, and I know, Chad, you're thinking this is not where you told me you were going to be. This is why it's all on you, buddy. In John chapter 4 is where we're going to kind of start reading off, and we're going to start at verse 3. Now we're going to get there, Chad. All this to say this. He left Judah and departed again into Galilee. And he said, and he must needs go through Samaria. Now, Samaria, the people there, the Samaritans, the Jewish people hated them. I've got really short ankle socks on. You are fixing to see that. Like, to the extent that if they walked through the city, when they got out, they are cleaning the dust from that place off of them. Right? Hated. Jesus had need to go there. Like most of the time when they traveled, they would, and I mean, they walked everywhere. Or they would ride some animal. They went out of their way. That's how bad these people were hated. Jesus had a need to go through there. Then cometh he to the city, which was called Sychar, near a parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus therefore, being weary with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. So that would be noon, right, Brother Paul? So it's hot, he's weary, he's tired, he gets to the well, he sits, it's noon. Okay, nothing too crazy about that. There came a certain woman of Samaria to draw water. And Jesus said unto her, give me to drink. Now, I remember sitting in FBI, and John Yates was talking about this. She's getting water at noon. And correct me if I was wrong, but I do say that the custom was they got water in the morning. Why is this woman getting it at noon? she might have been the most hated woman in this town. She might not be able to go in the morning with the other women because the other women don't want to be around this woman. Or the other women's husbands say, don't go around that woman. Now, Jesus had a need to go to a place that even his disciples hated and that Jewish people hated. He had a need to go sit down at a well and wait for probably the most hated woman in the town. Now, what does that kind of say that we should do? I'm not saying go out and put yourself in a dangerous situation. But when you look at people and you see them, and I mean, we do this. We're like, there ain't no hope for that one. There's hope. Because you remember back in John 3:16, and this is where I like to start with people whenever we give them the gospel, because I don't know people's backgrounds. I don't know what Connor's been through. I don't know what Bear's been through. Lloyd was a devil dog, so nobody knows what he's been through. You can smile, Lloyd. I got a lot of respect for the Marine Corps. It's okay. We don't know people's backgrounds. And some of the people, if you actually knew everybody's background, I really think it would shock you. Aaron, did it shock you about me? Okay. We don't know what kind of person, what people's been through. But we do know that if we run across somebody's path, we need to share the gospel. We look at this passage and we see that he sits there and he talks to her. And she's amazed. She's like, how are you, a Jewish man, talking to me, a Samaritan? Because one, what custom wasn't that a man talked to a woman. So he's breaking some customs here. Two, he's a Jewish man talking to somebody that they absolutely hated. To the point that they're willing to walk, I don't know how far out of the way, and add a lot of time to their travel to avoid the dirt. And then they wipe the dirt off of them. They got to be clean. They don't want that filthy Samaritan dirt. Just think about that as we go through our day. And that's something I have to think about as I go through my day. I'm going to meet all kinds. Somebody told me I have the front row tickets to the greatest show on earth. So this is something I have to keep in my mind. And it's something I give Connor a lot of credit for, because Connor's witness to a lot of people that he's put in the back seat of his cop car. Connor's also witnessed to a lot of cops that he knows. They've came and they've got saved. But the people that we run across, but you know, we sit here, and what I normally start off with is, for God so loved the world. Because so many times people think about what their backstory is. Well, God wouldn't love me because of this. God wouldn't love me because of that. I've done this, I've done that. You don't know what I've done. I don't know what you've done. God knows what you've done. I said, and the Bible says, for God so loved the world. Are you in this world? Yeah. He loved you. I said, how much did he love you? That he gave his only begotten Son. I've told people, if you were the only person on this planet and you've done all the wicked, bad things you've done, Jesus still would have went to the cross. Because God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. And so many times people, they sit there and they say, oh, Christians are full of hate. Yes, there are. There's a small band of people that's hateful. I can think of a couple of people off the top of my head. I can think of one individual, but I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to give him any more credit and fame than he already has. But in my opinion, he's an idiot. Sorry, that's probably wrong to say, isn't it? Okay. Lloyd probably knows who I'm talking about. He's like, yeah, he is. We're to show love and compassion. We're to be Christians. I mean, you see the woman at the well. Jesus sits there. He goes up to this woman. He talks to her. He has conversation. She tries to kind of argue about where do we worship? Where do we worship in the mountain? We worship here? And he's like, stay on topic. Because so many times people will want to say, well, this religion believes. I don't care. This is what you need. To stay on track and to give the gospel message. This is what you need. We can talk about and we can discuss later on, but the main need in the life, and the main need in this woman's life, she thought was water, but instead it was the water that Jesus was offering her, which was salvation. That was the need in her life. And he starts exactly where she's at. She's there for water. He starts with something that she knows. So many times when people go out and they witness, they throw out big words. I don't know big words. My FTO is learning that Joey does not know big words and does not know how to spell half the words he knows. I'm so thankful for spell check. But start where they're at. And the thing is, it's like, this ain't just like one example where he went and he was talking to somebody or he forgave somebody that was just totally out there that the world looked at and said, why? In Luke 7, we'll start with verse 40, but this is where a Pharisee, he invited Jesus to the house to eat. This is where the woman sat there and washed his feet and anointed him with the alabaster oil. So he's sitting there at this dinner and this goes on. And the Pharisees, it says in verse 39, when the Pharisees, which had bid him, saw it, he spake within himself, saying, this man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what manner of woman this is that touches him, for she is a sinner. And we start in verse 40, and Jesus answered, saying unto him, Simon, I have somewhat to say unto thee. And he saith, Master, say on. There is a certain creditor which has 2 debtors. One owes 500 pence, the other 50 pence. And when they had nothing to pay, he frankly forgave them both, telling them, therefore, which of them will love him most? And Simon answered and said, I suppose that he to whom he forgave most. And he said unto him, thou hast rightly judged. I know, I'm kind of really talking about going out and witnessing to people and stuff like that, and I just don't ever want us to get to the point in our lives where we look at people and we say this person cannot be saved. Because here was another woman where people were like, if he was a prophet or if he was a preacher of any kind or if he was anything of any kind, he would not even let this woman touch him because she's a sinner. I'm honestly amazed they didn't try to run her out of the house. Because see, my buddy who's covered with the Tibetan monk tattoos, he don't have very long to live. You know, he was forgiven of a lot. He had been through a lot. And if I kind of would have liked to have seen him back when he was crazy, because he wasn't the same person. Did he have mistakes? Did he make mistakes? Did he stumble? Yes. But you know what? He loved God. We would sit and we would talk. He would sit and he would witness. I always like watching people witness to people. Everybody does it different. I like to have conversations. If I see somebody telling somebody the gospel, witnessing to them, I don't say nothing. Do I, Bear? I've sat there and watched Bear do it before. I didn't say nothing, interject. I watch. We should never look at somebody, though, for anything and think, God wouldn't have me to witness to them. They're a lost cause. Because it's somebody that you've ran across. You may be the person that plants the seed. You may be the person that waters. You may be the person that stands there that gives them the gospel message, and today may be the day they get saved. You may also be the last Christian they see alive. Because that person that works at the convenience store, I would say the person that checks you out at Walmart, but that's yourself. If you're not saved, you need to get saved. Maybe the last time. Now, I know one day I'm going to stand before God and I'm going to have to give an account for people that I didn't witness to. And I am not going to have a good answer. There is not a good answer. But I don't want to stand before God and say, I didn't witness this person because they look like this or they were that. Because I'm pretty sure the Apostle Paul is going to be there and he'd be like, I'm the only person where it talks about they wreaked havoc in the church. I also mention that to people. It's like, hey, Apostle Paul, he was Saul. He wreaked havoc. He got saved. I also know a guy who, it's interesting people. And I'm sure Lloyd and John, y'all know the guy. He was a pretty bad dude. Like, he worked for the devil hardcore, got some overtime with the devil. He got saved one day, and it switched. As hard as he worked for the devil, he worked for God. He would go talking to people. He would go to the jails, and he'd be preaching to people. And they said, "Aren't you scared going to jail?" No, I know most of the people in there. Matter of fact, they probably worked for me. And the thing is he spoke their language. He knew how to speak to them. And people would get saved. And some of the people that worked for him are now Christians. They're going to church. Their family's in church. They got little kids that's now going to church first time in their lives. And if you'd have seen these people back before, and now you see them now, and they're out witnessing to people. We all have different backgrounds. Everything that we've been through can be used to reach people that we've been through the same thing. We kind of got to go out there whenever we're witnessing. We got to humanize ourselves. If you know a person's got issues with alcohol, if you've had issues, tell them. I mean, if there's something that God's helped you overcome and that person, that's the thing they're holding on to, tell them, I've been there. Well, how'd you quit? God. I mean, I used to smoke. I used to drink. Most people don't even know I smoked. It's been 18 years in November since I've had a cigarette or any tobacco products. Yeah. Someone sitting there smoking. Well, I smoke. Well, been there too. Well, how'd you quit? God. My uncle smoked before he died. He smoked pretty much his whole life. He got saved and he got convicted. He didn't want to smoke anymore, which I don't blame him. He had cancer. And he talked to my dad and he said, I want to quit smoking, but I don't know how. Dad said, have you prayed about it? Have you asked God to help you? No. Pray about it. It's okay. So he prayed about it. Next time they talked on the phone, Johnny saw, I haven't smoked. I ain't really had the desire to smoke. It ain't been that bad. They said, why? Well, God helped me. I think that's why every one of us have a weird backstory. It's because there's somebody out there we can reach. There's somebody out there that only Zach can get to. It's probably going to be another person committing fraud in a bank, but there's somebody that Miguel's going to get to. There's people Connor's going to reach out to. I mean, every one of us, we have something about us, but we can't ever look at people and individuals and count them out. I've got a cousin that I would love for him to get saved. I would love for him to get his life straight. I would love for all this to happen while my grandparents are still alive. My grandparents love him to death and thinks he does no wrong. They think the cops are picking on him, Connor. They do. But it would be great. And it's going to take somebody like my buddy who was working hardcore for the devil. It's going to take somebody like him. As a matter of fact, he's preached to him. And that guy said, well, God's the reason why all these problems with my health. No, you're an idiot. You're the reason why. You're the one that done this. You're the one that done that. This is you. And I'd hate for somebody to ever look at him and say he's too far gone and not witness to him. He's actually came to this church one time before he went to prison. Somebody was, I forgot who it was, told me, somebody here with the same last name as you. This is their name. I had to walk up here to see it for myself. I was excited. I think he sat somewhere over that side. Talked about wanting to get his life straightened out. And then went back down the rabbit hole. Well, like I said at the beginning, if this makes no sense or if this is a terrible message, Chad's mom, blame your son. Sorry, ma'am. She's still watching? But this is something that I just trying to remind myself of, because I know I'm going to meet all kinds of people. I'm going to meet some very interesting people. So far, everybody I've dealt with has been semi-civil. I know that's not going to always be the case. But I do know that I need to witness to people. I need to show love. I need to show some compassion and mercy. And I just hope throughout the week we just think about that everybody that we run across and that we see, this isn't by chance. You may be the person that God has there. You may have the need to go to that place to speak to that person. I hope this is some kind of blessing. I hope it helps. I just need to, like I said, we just need to apply it to our lives, that we just go out. And I know I preach a lot on love. And I'm not doing it because I think this isn't a church that loves. I tell everybody I meet when they say something about Christians being hateful, well, you haven't been to my church. You haven't met the people here. I mean, some of the people, he done walked out. I was fixing to pick on Brother Denny. But I do preach on it a lot because I don't ever want us to forget that we are to love people. And that we are to be like Jesus, to show compassion on people and to help people and to point them to them. Because we're supposed to be a light. We're supposed to be a bright city set up on top of a hill. And if we're like some of them churches, some of the places where they're just preaching on hate, that's not a light. People ain't going to distinguish that from the others. There's 50 million people out there right now that's willing to kick you when you're down. And that shouldn't be us. Connor, you want to pray and dismiss us, please?